The British took Bengal through forgery, bribery, and the calculated betrayal of local elites. But in the south, the East India Company encountered a different reality. This was a region where power was dictated by the range of a cannon, not the stroke of a pen. This 18th century engraving of the Bombay coast illustrates the scale of the British presence. The company had transitioned from a mere trading collective into a military machine, protected by stone fortifications and heavily armed frigates. On this map of the Deccan, the pink territory marks the Kingdom of Mysore. It was a landlocked power, wedged tightly between the British and Madras, the Nizam of Hyderabad, and the expansive Maratha Empire. Mysore's survival depended on its military. Its leader, Hyder Ali, rose from an unlettered cavalryman to seize control of the state by 1761. He immediately established a modern arsenal at Dindigul, mass-producing artillery and training his infantry using European tactical models. Hyder Ali had transformed Mysore into a centralized military state. Because it sat directly across the primary routes of British territorial expansion, both powers were now occupying the same strategic space. At the start of the First War in 1766, the British attempted to surround Mysore using a coalition of local proxies. They convinced the Nizam and the Marathas to provide the manpower for a coordinated strike. Hyder Ali broke the coalition through diplomacy, then launched a lightning strike toward the coast. If you look at the inset map of Madras, you can see how vulnerable the capital was. Hyder's cavalry reached the city gates, catching the British completely off guard. Facing total chaos in their administrative center, the British were forced to sign the Treaty of Madras, agreeing to help Hyder Ali if any other power attacked him. That promise was broken in 1771, when the British refused to assist Mysore against a Maratha invasion. Deeply distrustful, Hyder Ali turned to the French, importing the modern weaponry and engineers he needed to challenge the company. This led to a 4-year war of attrition. During the fighting, Hyder Ali died of cancer, leaving his son, Tipu Sultan, to take the reins. Tipu continued the campaign with such intensity that the British eventually agreed to a second peace treaty in 1784. After 2 decades of conflict, the East India Company realized they were facing an enemy that could not be easily fractured or bribed. Tipu Sultan focused on making Mysore an economically self-sufficient state, viewing industrial strength as the foundation of military power. He pioneered the use of iron-cased rockets on the battlefield. These weapons used metal cylinders to contain higher combustion pressures, allowing them to travel further and hit harder than the paper-wrapped rockets used in Europe at the time. To bypass British middlemen, Tipu established state-sponsored silk production and organized an admiralty board. His goal was to construct a fleet of 22 battleships, aiming to protect his own trade routes and challenge British maritime control. Tipu's most direct challenge to British authority was ideological. He supported the local French Jacobin Club and styled himself as Citizen Tipu, signaling his alignment with revolutionary ideals that were inherently hostile to the British monarchy. Tipu Sultan was building a state designed for total technological and economic independence. He was creating a rival system that aimed to replace British mercantile supremacy rather than simply enduring it. The Third War began in 1790, when Tipu attacked the British-aligned state of Travancore. Travancore controlled key coastal territories Tipu claimed as his own, and the attack gave the British the pretext they needed to strike. Lord Cornwallis personally led the response. As this graphic shows, he consolidated the British, Maratha, and Nizam forces into a single, massive coalition that simply overwhelmed Tipu's defenses. By 1792, Tipu was forced to sign the Treaty of Srirangapatna. He surrendered half of his kingdom to the Allies and was ordered to pay an indemnity of 3 crore rupees. As a guarantee for this massive payment, the British took Tipu's 2 young sons as hostages. The princes were marched away to Madras to live under company supervision. The loss of territory and the sheer scale of the fine stripped Mysore of its primary revenue sources. This treaty was intended to leave the state insolvent and incapable of mounting a future defense. Tipu Sultan eventually paid the indemnity and recovered his sons, but he immediately began fortifying Srirangapatna and seeking new alliances abroad. In 1798, Lord Wellesley became the new Governor-General. Wellesley viewed any independent Indian state as a threat to British security and made their total eradication his primary objective. Wellesley utilized the Subsidiary Alliance, a diplomatic framework that required Indian rulers to disband their own armies and pay for a permanent British garrison within their borders. Tipu Sultan refused to accept these terms, choosing the risk of war over a subservient peace. This triggered the final invasion of Mysore in 1799. Tipu's forces were pitted against two separate British armies. During the final siege of Seringapatam, the city walls were breached. Tipu Sultan died in the heat of the combat, and his royal treasury was immediately seized by the company. Following Tipu's death, the British dismantled the state. This map shows how the kingdom was carved up. The British took the coast, the Nizam took the interior, and the remaining central core was placed under a child puppet ruler. The fall of Mysore ended 32 years of resistance. By extinguishing the most modern and industrially ambitious state in India, the British removed the final major obstacle to their total control of the subcontinent.